It's crafting time again, and today our focus is on the story of the Call of Samuel, which is a special biblical reminder that God knows us, calls us by name, and has a plan and a purpose for our lives. So we're going to celebrate that with two crafts. The first one we're going to make today is a Samuel puppet, and it's going to be an asleep and awake paper bag puppet. So we're going to start with our paper bag. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can use both sides of the paper bag, or you can use one to be both the asleep and awake Samuel, which is what we're going to do for our time purposes. So I'm going to start here, and we're going to create our asleep Samuel. So we're going to have his sleeping face here. Here's his closed sleeping eyes. And we're going to give him a little sleeping face there. And we'll give him some hair. And here's our asleep Samuel. Now we're also going to create a little blanket that's going to cover him. And so I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. And, you know, I doubt that Samuel had a quilt in the temple, but we're going to go ahead and give it a little pattern. Here's his quilt. And down at the bottom of this bag, we're going to give this a caption. So I'll say, God called Samuel. And now we're going to make the awake Samuel. So we're going to flip this paper bag up right here, and we're going to give him an awake face. So here's his awake face, and it also has a smile because he's saying, "Speak, Lord." In fact, we can add that here. Give a little caption bubble. "Speak, Lord." Ta-da! And we'll give him some hair too. Now we'll give him a little outfit. And here he is. Give him kind of a neck. Here's his outfit. And his hands are going to be like, "Whoa, I'm listening." Da da da. So here's sort of a robe. Here we go. And this is what he's wearing in the temple. Here's his hands, his feet. Here we go. And if you would rather, you can, of course, you can get more elaborate with this, and you could use actual cloth or paper, cloth or fabric or paper for both things, for his clothes here and for his blanket. If you want to make it extra super fun, but we're doing the basic short version, so we're just using paper and markers. So here's my awake Samuel and my caption, and then I'm going to actually caption the back of his blanket as well. So here we say, God called Samuel, and here we'll say, Samuel listened. Then we'll give our reference. 1 Samuel chapter 3 is what we're looking at here. So I'm going to glue this on, and actually I'm going to fold it back so that when I glue it, I can open that blanket up, because the idea here is that we have sleeping Samuel. There we go. Cover his feet up. So we have sleeping Samuel, and then we fold back the blanket. We have awake Samuel. So as you see, we could act out the whole story with this. So here's Samuel asleep in the temple, and then God calls to him, Samuel, Samuel, and he wakes up and he goes to find Eli, and then that happens again and again, and then of course Samuel says, Speak, Lord, your servant is listening, and then God gives him his message and calls him, and Samuel, of course, has a wonderful plan, so God has a wonderful plan for Samuel. So there's the idea: awake, asleep, or reverse that: asleep, awake, asleep, awake. All right, too much fun with that puppet. Moving on to craft number 2. So this is how we tell the story. Now we're going to celebrate what the story tells us, and that is that our names have special importance and meaning. So we are going to create a door hanger, and I actually have my completed object here, which I'll show you momentarily, but I'll show you the process to make it. This is going to be a rather short door hanger. You can of course make it longer, but this would be the idea. I'm going to trim it down a little bit, and then actually I could make this somewhat longer. There we go. So I'm going to make a hole for the door. So I'm actually going to just fold this over slightly and cut out kind of a semicircle so that when I open it up, there's a hole for the doorknob. And now we're going to decorate this. So we're going to use an acrostic poem. One of the neat things about this story that we see is how God, I'm not even going to bother with that actually, is how God called Samuel by name and knew his name. And Samuel's name actually had a special meaning. It meant God hears, or heard of God, heard by God, because Hannah knew that God heard her when she prayed to him for a child. And so he answered that prayer and she named her son God Hears. So we are going to decorate this. We're going to start by saying God has a plan for ... And we'll add some extra fun decorations here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the name down the side, and we'll come up with a word for each name, or for each letter. We're going to make an acrostic poem for the name down here to celebrate the person. So if I was doing this for myself, I would put K R I S T I N. And then I would come up with a word or a phrase for each letter, or even an entire poem, to make this acrostic poem. Now, I've got that set up here. As I mentioned, I have my finished product, and for this one I actually used the name Samuel, partly because that's who we're celebrating in this story, and partly because that happens to be my son's name. So I have a Samuel as well, and named him after this story, essentially. But this is what I've done with his name. So you can help the kids come up with the words or ideas that they're going to put in here. Older kids, of course, can choose their own. But I put super sweet, amazing, magnificent, unique, expect greatness, and loves Jesus. So, of course, my son, being only a month and a half, not years, a month and a half old, is, not old enough to write his own thing. So this is what I would hope for him, some fun adjectives there. But of course, feel free to use whatever works best for you in those situations. But there are some fun crafts to celebrate the story and the meaning of it. So you have your name to remind kids they have a name, which is special to them, and they have a special purpose that God can use them as well. And that in this story, God called and used Samuel. So there are your two crafts to celebrate and appreciate the story. Feel free to adapt them, change them, use them however works best for you. Hopefully, it is inspiring and fun and creative, and hopefully a blessing to you in your ministry, wherever and with whomever that might be. Now, go make some crafts, make some disciples. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.